I would like to present to the body today House Bill 254. Freedom of speech is the bedrock of individual liberty and one of the most fundamental protections afforded within the Constitution. In an effort to ensure that this protection is preserved and promulgated at Kentucky's public universities, I present for the body's consideration the Campus Free Speech Act. There is a long-standing history of Kentucky students being prohibited from exercising their First Amendment rights on campus because they were not standing in the school's Orwellian free speech zones. These inherently oppressive policies, which have been employed to prohibit demonstrations since the Civil Rights Movement, unreasonably quarantine students and Kentuckians into these tiny zones, which make up less than 1% of the campus. Unfortunately, this is not atypical. Many Kentucky universities have these policies and apply them indiscriminately, suppressing Republican and Democratic students, pro-life and pro-choice advocates, members of the LGBTQ community, and disproportionately affecting students of color and religious groups. This is an issue that affects every Kentuckian. Universities are meant to be a place of discussion, intellectual inquiry, and great debate within our society. The goal of the university itself should be to act as a public forum in which members of our society can discuss ideas freely without fear of reprisal. Ideas protected by the First Amendment should compete against each other, not be suppressed by a subjective preference for censorship. Unfortunately, there are currently many university policies that discourage the marketplace for ideas, including some that fail to protect the First Amendment rights of their students. What does this mean and look like here in Kentucky? It prohibits Baptist student ministries from giving free hugs on Free Hug Day because they were 2 feet outside a free speech zone. It prevents LGBTQ groups from passing out flyers. It prevents pro-life student groups from using crosses to represent children who have been aborted, and then turns around and silences the pro-choice counter-protests. It prohibits Black Lives Matter from speaking out against injustice. It forces preachers to go to extraordinary efforts just to pass out a Bible. And ironically, it has even stopped students from registering other students to vote. These are just a few examples of the everyday demonstrations that were stopped right here in Kentucky because they were outside a free speech zone. These stories should be very disturbing to every Kentuckian. They directly represent violations upon the First Amendment rights of tens of thousands of students at publicly funded post-secondary institutions. That is why this body must support Kentucky students by ensuring that our public institutions of higher education remain open for peaceful debate. This is why over 20 bipartisan and diverse student group organizations from across Kentucky came together in a petition to address First Amendment issues on campus. College Republicans, college Democrats, pro-life student groups, and LGBTQ student organizations, law school chapters of the Federalist Society, and the LGBTQ law section at UK, even the Kentucky Youth Law Project. Together, We Will Louisville and the Family Foundation have all rallied together to say that this is a real issue that impacts us all. It should show the importance of this. When we quarantine any person to a free speech zone, we limit our own activism, including our own ability to be able to speak out against what we disagree with. As a representative of Kentucky, I cannot remain silent upon this issue because any complacency may be eventually used to one day silence me. Kentucky students should be focusing on their academic studies, figuring out what to study, and joining clubs, not given the immense burden to fight a university, fighting for their constitutional rights that they already possess. That's why Kentucky students have been the soul and heart of this legislation, and we cannot ignore when the infringement of their First Amendment rights. The students of this great Commonwealth are looking to us to protect their constitutional rights. I ask for their bipartisan petition to set an example for us, and I ask that we as a body commit ourselves to protecting the First Amendment rights of students by passing House Bill 254 today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.